Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to be doing a celebrity psychic reading on Sandra Bland. This has been requested by many viewers, and like I said, I have a lot of different things going on right now, especially with my book being on pre-order and was ramping that project up, but it's available now for order on Barnes and Noble. It will be available again on Amazon. They are experiencing technical difficulties, so barnesandnoble.com is where you can go to check out my book and purchase it. It's called Starseed Footsteps, and it is going to be available worldwide on September the 18th. So when I get into Miss Bland's soul and energy, this is a combination of a mediumship and psychic reading. I do get that she was someone that was very passionate about life. She did have some depression. We all have depression at one time or another. I do feel and do see that she was someone, though, that was very outspoken. If there was anything that was done wrong, she was going to let you know how it was and exactly how she felt. She wasn't one to shy away from confrontation, but I do feel like, she's the type of person that she wouldn't confront you or get into a confrontation unless she was provoked or she met someone that kind of matched her kind of energy. Her energy does come across as very intense. So it does feel like, in her own family, she may have had some issues, and this would have created some distance between some of her family members. But for the most part, don't she I get that she would she loved her family first and foremost. Every family member or every family has their bickering, it has their disagreements, but ultimately they are blood and they do love one another. I also get that she was a person that was very much passionate about injustice, and she did not like to see people being treated regardless of race. But I do feel like she was very much a person who was very much into the into protecting everyone. She wanted to see everyone safe. But the Black Lives Matter, that kind of movement, I feel like she was very much into that. And she hated seeing a lot of the injustices and stuff that took place around the world. But for the most part, like I said, she was very grounded. She was going through a lot of shifts at the time that she was arrested and pulled over. And I get, that she was very optimistic about where she was going and what she was doing, and just finding her place in the world. Ultimately, she was ever evolving. I do get there were some financial struggles, and I do feel like her life wasn't just perfect. When her soul comes across, I do feel like she did have a lot of painful relationships in her love life, which she was very much misunderstood. I also get that, she would have turned to certain things, certain coping mechanisms. So, there would have been some kind of dependencies, whether this was on, substances or, alcohol, but there would have been some dependencies that she would have experienced. However, I do feel like, she was someone that was able to control, those cravings or, those temptations to a certain extent. And I feel like the day that she was stopped, she was, in a good mental space. But I feel like there was some anger in the way that the guy that stopped her, kind of provoked this. So let me get into the next slide here. Okay, so she was stopped by a Texas trooper. His name is Brian Encenia. Encenia, I hope I said that right or pronounced that right. And this is the guy pictured here on the left. So when I tune into his energy, he's someone that comes through as a very low vibration, very negative. I feel like there's a lot of anger, and I feel like he also took his position very much seriously, and almost like I feel, I hate to say this, I don't, but that's the way it comes across. I do feel like he had something against black people, and it's unfortunate, that he would be racist, but I do feel like there was some racism involved in all of this that went down with Miss Bland, and I do get that he would have had some anger issues, and I feel like the department never addressed that with him. They should have done like a psychological test, because I do get that he did have a lot of anger issues, and is just someone that was very unhappy. I feel like there was pressure from his boss, from the people in that he worked around, whoever his boss was. I feel like there was a lot of pressure on the job. I also feel like he had a lot of issues in his own personal life going on at the moment when he stopped Ms. Bland, and I feel that day he saw her, and it was something where he shouldn't have even gotten to the point of being ugly to Ms. Bland. But I feel like there was a lot of when you go through, because I used to work in customer service training, when you go through that kind of training, and anybody that's ever worked in a call center or worked with customer service training, it's all about your voice inflection and your tone and your soft skills and how you approach a person. And just because you are, an authority figure, or you're somebody that works in the police department, there are certain ways to talk to someone and de-escalate a situation. And I feel like in this situation, he didn't de-escalate the situation. He aggravated it, and he exacerbated the issue here with Ms. Bland. And so, of course, like I said, she was someone who was very passionate about, black people being, pulled aside or being racially profiled. And so what I get from Spirit is that she was someone that would have stood her ground, and I feel like she was in every right to stand her ground. But when you're looking at this from the perspective of a police officer or someone in law enforcement, they're going to tell you never resist an arrest, or you never resist the police officer. But I don't feel like she got to the point where she would have punched him or done anything unless she was provoked. Like I said, there was something also going on that day with her. She was pretty much calm, but I also feel like she was going through her own separate issues. And it's like when you put I'm just going to give this an example. You have two Scorpios, two scorpions in a ring, in a boxing ring. They're going to go at each other, because ultimately not one doesn't want to lose, the fight at all. So I do get that to a certain extent that this is what actually occurred with Miss Bland. Now the question is, could he have handled things differently? Well, I feel like he also had a lot of issues telling the truth. I feel like he did lie about everything. This is what I'm getting from him. And I feel like he knew more or less from that arrest, that she was not going to let things go, and that there was going to be a review of his, his actions and how she was going to handle it. But ultimately what I get is that upon, she went to, I believe it was Waller County Jail or whatever, wherever she went, transported, that facility, I feel like there was a lot of things that were covered up. So the question is, was Sandra Bland murdered, or did she commit suicide? What I get from her soul and what I get intuitively was that this was murder. I do not get that this was something where she would have committed suicide. She just doesn't come across, her soul doesn't come across as somebody that would have done that. There was a lot of things that were, brought out into the social media that she would have had, previous attempts to be, suicidal attempts, etc. But I do not get that. I do get that there was foul play. I do see that, in this whole thing, there was a lot of holes in the story that was given. And you have to understand, when it's involving a big criminal justice system, and there's other external factors or parties that are coming in, like the FBI and things like that, it's not going to just affect one person if that person had anything to do with her murder. It's going to be a ripple effect, and a lot of people are going to go down if the truth was to be uncovered. So I feel like this was very much a cover-up. And remember that anything that is visual or that's in the system, it can be edited. Any camera footage can be edited by a professional or anyone that has some technical background. the fact that that there was discrepancies in the time that the jailers went to go and check on her and everything, it just doesn't add up. And I feel like she was someone who, I feel like the people that were working in there were also there were some key people that had it out for her, that knew who she was exactly. And I feel like they took action upon her. There was something where she would have had some kind of substances in her system, and I feel like these were administered either through food or some drink, but it would have been in the time that she would have arrived to the jail. There would have been something that would have been administered, is what I'm getting, and that kind of led her to be in a state where she wouldn't put up that much of a fight, and obviously they would hang her. That's the story, that's the way it goes, what came out on the news media. But I do not get that this was a suicide at all. I get that ugly feeling inside, that this was definitely foul play, and there's a lot of sadness behind that on her soul. I do feel like her soul did struggle to transition after her passing, but I do feel like she has haunted in many ways before she decided to cross over now, these people. And I get that there was these were males that carried it out, and like I said, there was cover up. But again, like I said, when it's involving something of this magnitude, there's going to be a lot of people that would go down if the truth came out. So I feel like a lot of this was kind of swept under the brush and was kind of hidden. There was a lot of discrepancies and a lot of holes in the story. But the truth is that anyone who knew Sandra and that knew her, and her family, they know that she would not have been suicidal. I mean, for an arrest, she knew that eventually she was going to get out. Why take her life? It doesn't make any kind of sense that she would have been suicidal. I do not get that energy and vibe from her. So there was definitely foul play. And like I said, when you're dealing with different counties and different jailing systems, this is not the first case where this has happened. There's been other cases and where this has happened to white white Americans or Caucasians, and also Hispanics. There's been a lot of documentation of these things occurring in the jail system. So ultimately, I feel like her soul is now in peace, but there was definitely some sadness, and I feel like there will be eventually justice coming out. I feel like there's key people that are still involved in the case, and that are not going to give up or let it go, even though the family has settled. Out of, they settled for some money and whatnot. But I do get that there's some people still invested in this investigation, and they're not going to let it go until the truth comes out. So whoever, did this, which is, I do get it was two males and they were Caucasian, is definitely going to be coming to the surface eventually, because like I said, nothing can be swept under the rug for so long without the truth coming out. And I feel like this is something that they fear, but it's definitely something that they will not be able to prevent, because the truth will eventually come out. But I do not get that she would have taken her life at all. So this is exactly what I'm getting from her soul, from what I'm getting from my spirit guides, and I fully trust what I'm receiving from spirit. And I'm not, trying to cause any kind of scandal or any kind of, pain to her family by doing this reading. But ultimately, what I see is what spirit is giving me, and what her soul is giving me, and I just don't feel that she would have taken that action upon herself to do that. There was no reason for that to even happen. And most people that do actually commit suicide, there is usually a reason, or there's a long history of mental illness, or a very strong reason. And I just don't get that would have been something that would have led her to those extreme actions. So once again, you don't have to agree with me, but this is exactly what I'm receiving from spirit. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any other celebrities that you would like for me to do a celebrity psychic reading on, please go ahead and comment in the comments section below. This was more because Sandra became almost like a celebrity with her passing, and it became national news. So I am doing a lot of, I am going to be incorporating some of these murder cases or unsolved mysteries, kind of, to shed light from my perspective, incorporating into the celebrity psychic readings as well. So if you did like this reading, please give it a thumbs up. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And if you would like to set up a private reading with me, you can go to my website. That's www.raymondguzman.net/shop. Blessings and love and light. Have an amazing day.